Well, right off the bat, now that awkward three-part pilot that the first 3 episodes of Star Trek Picard were is over, we might have actually finally got our first good episode of Star Trek Picard this week. Okay, so in this week of Picard, we finally are away from Earth. Not a bunch of Starfleet machinations going on in this episode. It's a bit more tightly focused down on Picard and his new little crew on their ship, going to a planet called Vashti, which is in the Beta Quadrant and formerly, I guess, part of one of the planets that used to be Romulan Star Empire. But as they somewhat help describe in this episode, you're getting more of an impression of exactly just how shredded up the Romulan Empire was after the supernova. And I'm kind of maybe starting to think that perhaps it wasn't an empire in the way we think of them in modern times, you know, like thinking of America as a large land empire or Russia as a large land empire where the whole range of the borders is filled with and populated by the people of said empire. But more like how empires were in the ancient age, where it was one city, and that people of that city controlled a big mass area, and all other sorts of cities and populations and tribes and groups, but they were not allowed citizenship, and the people of that city didn't live everywhere. Maybe a few real choice, nice places here and there they'd have for vacation homes, but for the most part, to be Roman was to live in the city of Rome. And so with Romulus gone, the Romulan Star Empire just isn't a thing anymore. So, which also makes me think back to some of the Cold War episodes of Star Trek Enterprise and how Scott Bakula, Archer, wasn't allowed to look at any of the books in that ruined library in the future that mentioned the Romulan Star Empire. And maybe the Romulan Star Empire isn't over for good. Maybe it could come back. Who knows? They just need a new Romulus. I mean, in the alternate time Star Trek Kelvin timeline, they've had this whole thing about, you know, old Spock going off to help found a new Vulcan, so that could be something that gets done. But anyway, we get little hints here and there, more of Romulan culture and Romulan mysticism, and leaning into the fact that, like, Romulans are not stoic, anti-emotional beings like Vulcans. They're also not quite as super strong as Vulcans, so maybe that's in part why they're more cool about allowing their feelings to show, because, you know, a Romulan going into rage isn't quite as dangerous as a Vulcan going into a rage, kind of a thing. Picard, in this episode, goes to this planet Vashti because he wants to pick up the help of an elite assassin to kind of help keep their back, since, you know, they're going to be facing who knows what, and they have these Shad Vash double secret Tal Shiar types on their tail and all that kind of stuff. And he's a former orphan boy from the evacuation from 14 years earlier that Picard kind of had like a little bit of a connection with. And he's bitter and feeling abandoned, but he ends up coming around to save Picard's life after Picard gets confronted by some angry Romulans on the planet, because the Romulans don't really have a great opinion of him because they all feel like he just, you know, promised them a bunch of stuff and then walked away. And basically, it's like they hinge all the blame they have on the Federation onto Picard, because Picard was, to them, like the key representative of the Federation, in their minds at least. And at the very tail end of the episode, 709 shows up, and it looks like she might actually be on the show for at least an episode or two, if she's not low-key being snuck into just being part of the crew. Picard said her name in a way where it's like he might be aware. I don't know. I don't want to speculate if they're going to try to retcon that they had met each other at some point in the intervening decades between series in the 90s and the series now. But I kind of got the hint that like he only like knew of her, like she was famous, but he never actually had a chance to meet her in person. It was just the vibe I got off their encounter at the end of it. It was the moment where like there's this ship shows up to help them because this old Romulan cruiser is attacking their ship in orbit, and first, it's just a sleek little fighter, and it suddenly dawned on me that holy crap, I'm looking at an advanced further evolution of the Delta Flyer, and then lo and behold, Jerry Ryan beams on board, and that was the end of the episode. The only other thing they really got into in this episode was some, obviously they're still going on with the plot line on the Borg cube and Soji and emo Romulan Narek and his hot incest sister, which is all right. In some ways, I'm kind of not sure who the bad guy is in that little triangle there. It is possible that Soji will turn out to actually be the unintentional villain, because at some point she is going to activate, and if Bruce Maddox is this horrible space Trump with android building powers who's making subversive MAGA chick bots, I don't know, it's a terrible analogy, guys. Having said any of that stuff to people really kind of has colored a large population in their perceptions of this show, because the idea that this is a Trump analogy is dumb. It's really dumb. I mean, that's stretching so hard. If it is, and if they actually wrote any of this thinking that they're making a Trump analogy, good Lord, are they like living in an alternate reality from what things are really like? So, I don't know. Anyway, though, I do also have the thought that perhaps the emo Romulan Narek might actually be the good guy here on the Romulan cube, and not Soji. Like Picard might be rushing, head first with good intentions because of this obsession to want to rescue and retain some fragment of Data, because he feels guilty about Data destroying himself on his behalf, when Picard himself was already ready to make that very same sacrifice. That he might be end up helping the bad guy. I don't know. I bet it'll tie somehow into Q showing up at the end of the season. And apparently, I've heard some rumors earlier that in a rant video from Razorfist, who is not at all happy about this series, which is sad. Like I said, the political posturing that some of the actors and crew have made publicly about their intentions with this show has warped people's ability to enjoy it, I think. But seriously, this was the first good episode. Not a great episode, but the first good episode of Star Trek Picard. I recommend checking it out.
But, God damn it, you fool! You didn't even tell them what the rumor was about how in Season 2 of Star Trek Picard, apparently there's going to be a big plot involving the Q continuum that will for some reason necessitate a meeting between Picard and Captain Janeway and possibly even Benjamin Sisko, or possibly both Siskos. Jake Sisko's out there too still, yes. And you also forgot to tell our wonderful viewers to hit like and subscribe and to comment and to give me all their money and signed over their firstborn children to me and swear fealty to King Waspinator in all things. I think that about covers it. So anyway, have a good one.